The combined Ultramarines and Imperial Fist forces have learned that a large amount of supplies are coming out of one specific mine entrance. Assuming that this is where the true leadership behind the rebellion lies, the Marines make their way on foot, prepared to face a large number of guardsmen and cultists. An Inquisitor has joined the Marines' efforts to track down the Chaos element they believe is responsible for the rebellion. The Inquisitor travels with a team of Voidsmen-at-Arms and their trusty dog. He insists on leading the assault. The Ultramarines, not one to shy from combat, follow immediately behind. It is a courtesy they're extending to the Inquisition to allow them to lead. Otherwise, the Marines would insist on leading. The Imperial Fists have brought a healthy amount of firepower into the cave, not knowing what they'll be facing. Certainly, they have a lot of missile launchers, but they're bringing a lot of bolt guns as well, knowing that their foe will likely be have a large quantity of rebels and other mortal or unmodified humans defending this area. They have also been joined by an Imperial Fist captain. He carries with him a teleport homer. It takes time to set up, but once he does, he'll be able to summon Terminators to the battle. For the time being, the group moves through the mine tunnel, which opens up into a wider area. Just ahead of them, they can see cultist units being led by the dreaded Chaos Space Marines. This playtest is testing two rules. First, most weapons have infinite range. For weapons that have a rule, such as rapid fire, where you have to determine what half your range is, you will use the listed range on the weapon. The example is a lasgun, such as the ones here, can potentially fire hundreds of inches off in the distance. However, you have to look at its listed range of 24 inches to determine what rapid fire means. In this case, you could fire hundreds of inches away with a lasgun, but you'll only be in rapid fire range if you're within half of 24. Certain weapons are exempt from this rule. Melta-weapons, torrent weapons, pistol weapons, weapons with the word shotgun in them, or weapons that are clearly shotguns but are not called shotguns, and finally, weapons with a listed range of 12 or less. All of those weapons are exempt from being infinite range. The other rule we're testing is simultaneous removal. Once a model reaches 0 wounds, do something to indicate that it's at 0 wounds, such as turning it on its side or putting a counter next to it. Models are only removed from the game at the end of the battle round. A model that's at 0 wounds is fully capable of being used by the player. Therefore, if, say, if there is a unit that is only 1 model strong and that model dies, or rather reaches 0 wounds, on the next turn, the player could use that model to move, shoot, charge, fight, and then at the end of the battle round, that model will be removed. Some things to consider. As soon as the model reaches 0 wounds, if there's anything that allows it, if there's anything that triggers off of being destroyed or having a unit removed, it happens at the point that the model reaches 0 wounds. For example, if I have a unit that once a model dies, that model gets to shoot immediately. As soon as that model reaches 0 wounds, he'll get to shoot, as per the rule that triggers on death. But he won't actually be removed until the end of the battle round, so he'll still be able to move, shoot, etc. until he gets removed. The other thing to consider is melee kills immediately remove you from the board. Simultaneous removal does not count when it comes to melee kills, and that's mostly because in one battle round there's 2 fight phases. It's different than shooting. Fighting happens more often. Therefore, to balance the rule that is meant more for shooting than it is for fighting, the simultaneous removal only counts to shooting attacks. This includes if you're in melee range with someone and you're firing a pistol at them. If you reduce them to 0 wounds, they'll lie down. If you hit them with a close combat weapon, any melee weapon, they will be, you'll have to deal enough damage to put them to 0 wounds, but then they'll be removed. Now you can direct melee, or rather, the person choosing where the casualties go, you can put casualties on models that are at 0 wounds. If you have, say, half the squad at full wounds and then half the squad at 0 wounds because half the squad was shot to death, if you're in melee, then you can either remove the fresh guys that still have full wounds, or you can remove the guys that are at 0 wounds. In this case, consider each model that's at 0 wounds, consider them to be at 1 wound. But everything else applies, like any invulnerable saves that the model at 0 wounds has, etc. That should be it. I'm trying to find a more concise way to sum up these rules, because I want to announce the rules and explain what they do at the beginning of each video, just in case someone is coming into these videos not knowing anything. On my Facebook page that I use to launch these videos, I do explain all of the rules being used. For example, we're using specific rules this time around for this particular Chaos Cultist unit. Rather than using the unit that is currently active, I made my own data sheet for these guys. They have they're led by an aspiring champion, a cultist champion who has a shotgun, and then they can have up to 8 or 18 cultist models. And for every 10 models, 1 model can have a heavy stubber. In this case, I only put 1 per squad, but actually 2 per squad is possible. And we're using the updated 10th edition rules for heavy stubbers. So they're rapid fire weapons rather than heavy weapons. From now on, even when this becomes a game of Space Marine versus Chaos Space Marine, I will be using cultist units, and I'm going to be using this particular rule for cultist units. They all have auto guns, as you can see, so they're primarily a shooting unit. And once in combat, this guy can do some okay damage. He's got a chainsword, it's -1 AP, 1 damage. It's not that great, but he also has an ability where he can kill a cultist, and they get immediately removed from the game when they die, instead of set down on their side for simultaneous removal purposes. And then the whole squad gets sustained hits on their melee weapons. Which isn't so great, because their melee effectiveness is pretty bad, but that's how that works. For this battle, if there are no models on top of one of these foam rock areas, these are considered to go all the way up into infinity, or up to the ceiling. So, in other words, they can't climb on top of this. This wall is considered to go all the way up. In other words, to the ceiling, so that this little area here forms a tunnel. So they have to move around, say they can't climb up this, they have to move between here, between there. The only exception are pieces that I have put units onto, so this one does not go up into infinity. You can stand on it, you can climb it, and this one as well. So as you can see, we go from Chaos Cultists into Traitor Guard squads. There are upgrade weapons. I am using a rule for barrels that makes them explosive. It's probably going to be really fun. It's going to be overpowered, because basically you shoot a barrel, and if it doesn't make it save, it basically gets Deadly Demise automatically. So it will deal more damage than it should, but the idea is for them to be as powerful as they are in, for example, Doom, where you can actually do significant damage with even just one barrel explosion. Of course, this is a legionary squad. Nothing special about them except that they are considered to be the representatives of the Chaos Space Marines in this area. These guys are leading this whole munitions area. The objective is to get within 3 inches of these barrels and to get within 3 inches of these barrels. And essentially what happens is you're considered to have placed explosives on them. Once you've done that, it's assumed that the Marines escape as quickly as they can. Any remaining Chaos forces scatter, because at that point you have Marines all the way in the back line. Chaos forces are probably thinned out very much at that point. So that's the victory condition to tag both of these with a Space Marine unit. And you may think Terminators will make quick work of a lot of these guys. Well, the Chaos Space Marines have some tricks up their sleeve as well. So we'll see what the Chaos Space Marines will use to introduce more Chaos Space Marines into this combat. In the meantime, I'm doing various things like giving a lot of these guys cover. These ones are perfectly on these craters, so they're all getting cover, which won't matter too much against bolter fire, but they have more than just bolters in these squads. So that's the rules that we're using, and that's the objectives. I hope by now you figured out that you need to watch these videos at double speed. I have problems with remembering names and things like that, and as you've no doubt noticed at this point, I pause and sometimes stall while I think of names and things like that. So it's just something that people who know me get used to. Trust me, it's annoying to me too. So please watch these videos at double speed. Since the Space Marines are the ones introducing themselves into this area, the Space Marines are getting the first turn. So now we'll go to Marines and Inquisition, movement turn 1, and yeah, movement turn 1. The Marine movement turn 1 is pretty predictable. The Inquisitor and the Voidsmen at Arms are playing it safe, staying in the crater, as are the Ultramarines, except I screwed up here. We are wholly within the crater, which in the Ultramarines' case speaks to their tactics and stratagems, that they're doing it by the numbers and not getting too excited and charging in. The Imperial Fists are largely delayed by the people who are in front of them, especially the captain here. The Devastator squad has moved forward. They're probably not going to be needed with all this bolt gun fire. They will fire on this squad if the bolt gun fire is not enough to kill them. None of these shots should have any AP. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there's nothing here except for the plasma pistol. And there's a plasma gun as well. This I stole this idea. I found it online a long time ago. So, anyway, plasma guns aside, they shouldn't actually get cover because you don't get cover if AP is 0. And actually, no, that only works if your save is a 3-up. So, yeah, they would get cover. All right. Anyway, on to shooting. Couple of things to point out really quick. The Devastator squad has a lieutenant in the unit. So we have lethal hits. I believe he's the only Primaris unit on the table. And here's something that I was processing, I've been taking models from the front, and this guy has a Stormbolter. So he's within 12 of models that are at 0 wounds, but he's not within 12, or rather, he wouldn't be within 12 if they were just being removed. This is just something that's going to come up when you're doing simultaneous removal. These guys are still considered to be on the field and active. Once it's the rebel turn, they're going to be able to move, shoot, charge, fight. So they're still very much in these positions. So if 12 inches ends here, then yes, I'm still in rapid fire range because these guys aren't gone yet. Time will tell how abusive that is, because you'll have lots of guys in rapid fire range. Testing with Marines isn't the greatest. Bolt guns, or at least the bolt guns they use, aren't rapid fire. Either way, that's just something I thought was worth mentioning. So now everything is fired except for the Devastator Squad. So they're going to have lethal hits. They're going to be hitting on 4s because they moved. They're going to be firing frag weapons, and they're going to be, since they're blast weapons, and this is a 20-man squad, it will be +2 for each of the rolls to see how many attacks there are. That's, again, another side effect of simultaneous removal. Since these guys aren't technically dead, this is still a 20-man unit, so all 4 of these frag missiles are going to add +2 to the number of attacks. Anyway, let's see if we can finish the squad with 4 frag missiles. So when all said and done, we have 4 wound rolls, and we have 5 auto wounds, which we'll be adding to the 4. This could potentially affect the aspiring champion, so we're going to just roll a few at a time. All right, so that's 4 cultists dead. There are 3 cultists remaining. Only killed 1. No, 2. So we're going to kill the cultist champion. So all we have left is the aspiring champion and the heavy stubber. But on the rebel turn, this entire unit is going to be able to fire on or charge everything here. So a critic might say that this allows you to to send kamikaze units that you know are going to be removed at the end of the battlefield. For example, there's no reason why I can't shoot and charge because I know I'm going to lose the unit. But at the same time, that's kind of the point. This rule exists so you can't kill a unit before it gets to act. In this case, top of turn 1, Marines have all but killed this this unit here, and they would be practically like there's a 1 bolt pistol, 1 heavy stubber, a chainsword. You know, there's not much left. So they can't really do what the cultists were meant to do, besides absorb fire. So simultaneous removal allows us to actually get use out of units before, so that you can't kill a unit before it gets to do anything, because that's kind of a bummer. So that's like the main reason why we do this, is so you can't kill a unit to try and stop it from doing what it does. It is not meant for competitive play. It is meant to be more fun and fair for people who just want to see for their forces clash against each other. Like, I want to see what these cultists can do with their autoguns. Oops, looks like the Marines killed all of them. You know, I don't like that. So that's why that rule exists, and that's what I'm testing. So we'll see what this cultist unit can do. This one's probably going to stay in its crater. It's very delicately placed in that crater. They like their saves. So we'll only have a few shots coming at them, but this is going to be the main activity on turn 1. So shooting is done. No charges are going to happen. We're forming a gun line here. So let's see what the cultists do on Rebel turn 1. So the rebels haven't moved. The because on this data sheet, the data sheet says if the aspiring champion is alive, you can destroy one cultist and they're removed, even though we're using simultaneous removal, they are removed from play as per this rule's wording. And the squad gets sustained hits. Actually, I forgot it's in the fight phase that happens. So we'll return this guy, and in the fight phase, I'll do that, and I won't bother explaining it again. But this is the pool of cultist shots. So I'm just going to roll this out live, just so we can see what's happening despite the Marines' ability to stop them. Let's see. We have lots of sixes. Too bad sixes don't mean anything. And it's a good thing that they're not getting sustained hits. Although, if I was playing with faction rules, I probably would have done a Dark Pact on them and made them, get sustained hits. And we're wounding on 5s, because these are autoguns. They're strength 3, so there's only 2 wounds. And a Marine goes down. So the only other thing is a shotgun, 1 hit, and that's not a wound. So then these guys will get their shots, but I just wanted to roll for everyone that was at 0 wounds, and it looks like 1 Marine went down. I should have specified it's going into the Devastators, so the Sergeant is going to take the hit for that, so we can keep all 4 missile launchers. But yeah, the 2 failed saves is the result of simultaneous removal. If it weren't for simultaneous removal, all these guys would be removed. There'd only be 2 guys there, and he would still be alive. So that's direct consequences right there. Going to move on to the rest of the shots and then on to charges. Okay, looks like the bolt pistol was able to do 1 wound on this particularly Devastator Squad guy. Alright, so now we're going to have this unit here charge. They got a 6, which is definitely enough to get them into melee. So normally I would choose charge targets. I think I would have said both the Space Marines and the Void's Men-at-Arms. I would say that those are both my charge targets. So now I'm going to measure based on each of these guys. So, like, even though they're on their side, this guy was only just an inch away when he... Well, just a bit over, because they were all on the terrain. So, he only really needed to move in 1 inch. So, I know this is going to be really messy, but I don't currently have a way to represent people being at 0 wounds, especially when dealing with, essentially 18 models that are all at 0 wounds, that would all need indicators. So, do the best you can with it. We're going to have to use our imaginations when it comes to who is within range. Obviously, the current rules of requiring models to get into base-to-base contact, only getting to fight if you're within base-to-base contact of someone who is already in engagement range. We're going to have to get a little creative with that. I presently do not have a solution for this, this rule is meant for casual games anyway. So an estimate of how many attacks are coming in, that's what we're going to have to deal with. Now, in future games, we're going to have a lot more Marine versus Chaos Space Marine going on. And it'll be interesting to see how this works with more elite units, especially units that don't have just throwaway attacks. These guys just have brutal combat weapons, 2 attacks, 4 up to hit, 0 AP, 1 damage. They're a joke. But eventually, it won't be a joke. Eventually, you're going to shoot, I don't know, a possessed squad. And the possessed squad will all be reduced to 0 wounds, and then they'll move and charge, and things will get hairy. Also, I'm going to have to eventually figure out, because for most of these games, I'm not using command points, but what happens if a unit is all at 0 wounds and you use Fire Overwatch. So these are all things, this is why we play test. These are all things I need to address. But for now, we're going to determine who can fight. So against the Devastators, I'm going to say 2 people here, 2 people here. We'll say another one there. So 5. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 on the Devastators, 4 on the Voidsmen at Arms. And they're all just Chaos Cultists with brutal combat weapons. So let's see what happens. These ones failed to wound. These ones failed to hit. So now we're going to fight back. Let's pile in a little bit. Let's try and get that lieutenant in. Okay. And these guys don't need to pile in. Alright, so let's see what happens. The Devastators killed 3 with punches and kicks. The Lieutenant killed 3 with his Mastercrafted Power Sword. The Voidsman at Arms killed 1. And the Inquisitor killed 2, using his Force Weapon. And here's what the situation looks like. So, the cultists fought. These guys are way back here just because I took casualties from here. So the cultists fought, and the Marines and the Voidsmen at Arms fought back. So we're actually at the end of the battle round. So now everyone who's on their side gets removed. And this is how it would have looked if we weren't using simultaneous removal, because these are the actual survivors. And I'm not bothering to roll for Battle Shock because I'm not using stratagems and I'm not using objectives, so it's pointless. Especially because I don't have anything that triggers on Battle Shock. So, that's the end of turn 1. We were able to wipe out the cultists. They did get a little bit of revenge in, but we were able to stamp them out, and eventually they all got removed. So we're going into Marine turn 2. We're going to have to finish this squad off, but that'll be easy enough. Won't require that much attention. So we're looking at movements that are going through this narrow area to start putting fire onto these guys. The cultists are largely speed bumps here. From this point on, these guys are going to mobilize because they're going to find out that the cultists aren't doing so well. The first line of defense have failed. So, Marine turn 1, we're going to see movement, shooting, and then the Rebel turn 1, we're going to see a lot of mobilization. Or Rebel turn 2, rather. We're going to see a lot of mobilization. Not completely extremely, because a lot of these guys are behind cover, but we'll see. Due to the layout, movement was restricted. You can see everyone moved up. There was some lateral movement over here, going through the confined area. We have the Inquisitor, again, insisting on leading the charge, and the Ultramarines allowing the Inquisition to lead the charge, but remaining close at hand so that they can lead the charge once these guys die. And Imperial Fists are being more strategic, moving with caution. These guys aren't quite on cover yet. Probably what I'm going to do is not even shoot at these guys and just get into combat with them. The Lieutenant should kill both. And that charge move will get us completely onto the cover, and then we'll be able to fire down lane with frag missiles, including on this squad up here. And then they'll probably remain here for the remainder of the game. So that's what we have, just basically a charge going on here. These guys are not really in a position to see much of anything. We'll get a couple of bolter shots. But most of the range attacks will be down this corridor. Alright, Marine turn 2, shooting phase. Okay, so with the limited amount of shooting coming through this corridor, you can see the unit wasn't completely wiped out. And again, we didn't shoot at this unit because we want to charge it. So let's do some charge rolls. They make it. And they're going to specifically move so that they end up in cover. And then the Inquisitor, dying to get that sword stuck into some cultists, ends up in combat with a bodyguard unit that does not want to become in combat at all. They've completely clogged the hallway, so the Marines can't make any kind of charge move. We could try to get some extra movement for these Imperial Fists, though. 9 inches. Fairly certain that 9 inches is way longer. Yep. So they can pretty much put their guys wherever they want. And now, once again, the corridor is clogged. So, say goodbye to the cultists, and I'll see you again at the end of the Marine turn. Okay, the combat phase is over, or at least the Marine section. I haven't fought back yet. The Inquisitor killed 2, his bodyguard unit killed 1, and everyone here died. So, simultaneous removal means pile in. All these guys who were shot to death are going to get to fight back. But we wanted these guys in combat because certain of these guys, we'd rather not have them running around and shooting. Alright, so cultists fighting back. We're going to say, probably could have done this better. Let's see. Let's say, there we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 cultists. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hitting on 4s. I'm doing this because these guys technically should not be fighting. And it looks like a forgettable combat anyway. And when I say that, I mean simultaneous removal. They were shot, and now they're getting close combat attacks. Looks like 1 wound. That's a 4-up save. And that is one dead. Not going to remove the dog. Kind of a monster would I be if I removed the dog. This is a melee attack, so he does not get turned on his side. And this guy is trying to take the dive. I think he's worried about the dog too. Alright. So, not a great exchange. Still lots of cultists, and they're all locked in combat, which means these guys won't be able to shoot at them. The Marines will probably have to try and find a way around this way. Imperial Fist could probably work their way around here. It's a little more wide open in that area. So that's the end of the Marine turn. Starting the Rebel turn. These guys can't move anywhere because they're locked in combat. These guys are happy on their rocky area. I'm giving them cover for being up there. These guys also will never move from that position. They're getting cover as long as they're up there. Although, like I said, anything that doesn't have people on it goes up into infinity, aka the ceiling. So there aren't a lot of cross... I mean, there could be some cross-table shots here. Remember, infinite range is also being tested. So it looks like we could even... No, we're not going to get a... We're not going to get a plasma gun shooting across the board, just some auto guns. But we'll see if they do any damage. And we'll also see what these guys do in response to what is heavy gunfire and the sound of lots of people dying. So now we're beginning the Rebel turn 2. The Rebels are closing ranks. They do have a leader on site. This guy right here, you can see by the medals on his chest there, this is a company commander. He's technically the one in charge of the Traitor Guard squads. And so they're closing ranks, taking cover. These ones are outflanking, hoping to get around these obstacles and toward the threat. And the legionaries, especially the aspiring champion, they know bolt gunfire when they hear it. Especially the size of the bolt gun that Marines carry, larger than other Imperial forces. They hear those telltale shots and they're moving in. They're doubtful that the Traitor Guard can hold them back, and they're arrogant enough to think that they can take on whatever the Marines can throw at them because their belief in the Chaos Gods is absolute, and that means that they're invincible. So as for shooting, these guys can't be shot because they're in combat. These guys are going to take fire from the cultists who found high ground. We're going to have a couple of autogun shots firing across the table, coming from there. And a couple of autogun shots here too. Not very many. There's still a lot of obstacles in the way. On to the Rebel shooting phase. The Rebels were actually able to trace lines all the way from back here to here, all the way from back here to here, and from here all the way back to here. All that happened was this squad, one of them took a wound from failing a save. I did have to roll, I think, 4 saves total. Wounding on 5s and hitting on 4s is, it's not ideal against Marines. So we don't have any charges, so we're just going to go into the fight phase. No. I don't remember what it was from last time, but let's just count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys. Again, I'll find this out when I edit it, but it looks like 7 right now. I don't know if it was 7 last turn. Nothing has changed. Now, again, these guys are getting removed at the end of the battle round. All of these attacks are from guys that were not removed because of simultaneous removal. They're getting their hits in, even though they should have been shot to death. So let's see if that amounts to any additional damage that should not be taking place if not for... Oh wait, we are doing 4s. If not for simultaneous removal. Okay, so that's 3 casualties. 1, 2, 3. Now, I could fight back. I'll certainly pile in. But I'm not going to bother rolling the dice because I'll end up just removing guys that were already at 0 wounds. And the guys that are still standing are the ones that will remain at the end of the battle round. So, battle round ends. We remove each of the guys that are on their side because they were shot and killed earlier in the turn. And here's how it looks now. So the good news is, on Marine turn, these guys are not in combat. So they'll be able to move and charge and shoot as they will. And that might also clear up some space here. For example, maybe the Inquisition finally decides to, fall back and perhaps deal with the troops that are coming from that direction. And the Marines might actually get to come in here and do some real damage. As well as these guys. These guys probably want to follow in this way. So we're at the end of the battle round, so we're back at Marine turn 3. The Devastator squad is going to stay still because they can shoot across the board and put a lot of frag missiles into these guys. These ones will probably move in. We're probably going to have a lot of Marine shooting going into these cultist squads. And we'll go from there. So, Marine movement phase and shooting phase. It's not that the Inquisitor doesn't trust the Marines. He's just very motivated, let's just say. He moved in and is still roughly an inch away from people. We're calling it an inch away. But the Ultramarines did get some extra room to move in. The Imperial Fists look like they could go either way right now. Devastators, as I stated, are staying still. And this combat squad is moving up. It might shoot up there. It might shoot over here. It's going to be the last to shoot. It's going to wait to see what happens over here. Marine shooting phase. The Marines cleaned house. You can see that the entire squad, aside from the aspiring champion that leads them, has been wiped out. And we have 1 wound remaining on the aspiring champion. This squad actually had to direct its fire in here. As they fired upon this unit, there was only the aspiring champion left. I tried a crack missile, and I rolled a 3, which didn't work because they moved. I needed a 4. I tried their bolt guns. We got 3 wounds, and he made all of his saves. So he still stands. Actually, no, he failed 1 save. That's why he's at 1 wound. So we're going to have charges. I'm not going to bother rolling for these guys because they're just going right ahead. And Marines, just as long as they don't get a bad roll. Yeah, they're getting in there. Again, we have to be reasonable with the guys that are turned on their sides. We have to assume that there's a circular base under there, and I will work on... and this will probably be ongoing work, but I will work on a better way to represent that they are at 0 wounds. All right, gonna do combat off the combat. Okay, it's worth noting that the Marines were just down to punches and kicks when it came to taking this guy down. Now, he is only treated as having one wound. So, even though he failed 3, and I believe he has 4 wounds total. I didn't have to check before because he was so overwhelmed with damage. But he only, when he's on his side and at 0 wounds, and someone makes a melee attack at his unit, he's only considered to have 1 wound remaining. So he fails his save, and since I can't know who made these saves, well, let's... So essentially, I rolled too many dice because he has a better save than anyone else, but he only has 1 wound. So if I put this on the firebrand, then this is what the aspiring champion would have taken. If I put this on the firebrand, then this is what the aspiring champion would have taken. So no matter how you arrange it, he passed a save, maybe, but he failed at least 1, which killed him. So, dead and dead. So they were turned to their sides for simultaneous removal, but the Marines were able to move in and kick the crap out of them, and now they're dead. So on the Rebel turn, we're not going to have to worry about removing those casualties at the end of the battle round because they were killed in melee. Alright, so that's it for the Marine turn. We're moving on to Rebel turn 3 movement phase. Not a lot of movement is going to happen. They're just going to be fine sitting and shooting. Although I suspect the Chaos Space Marines are going to want to move in. Okay, Rebel movement phase is ended. These guys are really legging it and getting very close to being able to fire on the Space Marines. This Legionary squad has taken cover, and they're going directly for the Space Marines. They're probably going to deal with the Inquisitor first, being that he's easier to kill. We do have a plasma gun in here, and I believe that's a plasma pistol. So we'll see what happens. Here, I would have liked to move both squads down to the bottom, but 10th edition rules, you can't overhang, so they're still within coherency, horizontally speaking. And they're going to fire down at the Marines, and then probably charge. Aside from that, just lots and lots and lots and lots of shooting. So, into the shooting phase we go. The Marines took no damage, as these guys put everything into them. This guy is actually not attached to any unit, so a number of these guys were able to fire shots at him. He made all of his saves. 1 Devastator Marine bit the dust from attacks from back here. And I found that I was able to get lots of single plasma gun shots, such as these 2 on the screen right now. Can see these guys. I've been trying like hell to kill this Inquisitor, but he has a 5-up invulnerable save, and he keeps making his saves. But as you can see, his bodyguard unit is done. Eventually, someone finally killed the dog. These guys even fired with their plasma gun and plasma pistol, but like I said, this Inquisitor just keeps making his goddamn saves. He took 1 wound, he's down to 3. And that's all the real activity that went on. Charges, we're going to do a quick charge with these cultists. I'm just going to do that off camera because I don't really care at this point. And then we'll be at the end of the battle round, and these 2 guys will get picked up. Turning these guys on their sides is really just a procedural thing. It's not like they get to do anything. But for example, say this squad charged this squad. If they did fire Overwatch, the guy that's on his side would get to fire Overwatch because of simultaneous removal still going on. So just because you're going first just because you have the top of the turn and you take casualties, it doesn't mean that it's pointless and that simultaneous removal benefits the second player. You can still do stuff. It's just usually you're not doing a whole lot on your opponent's turn. But if you do have stuff to do on your opponent's turn, you can absolutely do it. So I'll get the charges out of the way, remove the models. These guys will probably die to a counterattack, and we'll get to turn 4. At the top of turn 4, the Marines have made it past the bouncers. The cultists were really just there to act as a speed bump and an early warning system for the Trader Guard, who are actually protecting the supplies, as well as for the Chaos Space Marines, who are now on the attack, going after their hated enemy. This Inquisitor seems to be holding his own, but I have a feeling his days are numbered. The Marines are going to have to press forward quickly to get things done. And this Imperial Fist captain, certain that he's not going to get anywhere near the supplies at his rate, he decides to call in reinforcements from where he is, hoping that crossboard fire from the Terminators will allow for some devastation down the midfield, allowing the tactical combat squads to make their way down the board, place the explosives, and then get the hell out. Now, it's going to take him a whole turn to set this up, so he can't even shoot or charge while he's doing it, I've decided. But next turn, in the movement phase, the Terminators will be able to appear in roughly this area, and, again, make their way straight down the middle. In the meantime, we're going to have the movement phase for turn 4. So we're going to have a combat squad here move up this way and start putting shots into those Trader Guard. We're going to have the Ultramarines move through this way and confront the Legionary squad. These guys are probably going to try to flank their opponent. At this point, they probably are unaware of the flanking maneuver that the Trader Guard are doing. So we'll get to see combat squad versus one well-armed Trader Guard squad. These guys will probably be able to provide fire support if that's the way the Imperial Fists move, but it seems like it's more likely they'll fire down this lane for now. So, turn 4, Marine movement phase. Marine shooting phase turn 4 is completed. 3 frag missiles overkilled this unit of Trader Guardsmen. With combined fire of this unit and this unit, as well as a couple of shots from him, we were able to get this Legionary squad down to 2 casualties and 1 model with 1 wound on him. Some crossfire over here killed off 1 guy. So as you can see, that's 1 person that'll get to shoot, move and shoot. This entire unit will get to behave normally, despite having 2 guys killed. And yeah, even these guys are got a full turn of shooting. So charge wise, yeah, there's no, I don't think I'm going to be charging. I mean, maybe I should, but I don't want to get stuck in with the Legionaries. We'll see what happens. So we're at the end of Marine turn 4, going into Trader turn 5. Not a whole lot of movement. These guys are going to move into position. These guys are going to continue flanking. And a bunch of shooting, although diminished. Well, not really diminished, because the casualties will be firing back. Alright, Rebel turn 4. As specified, this unit continues to flank, and is now coming directly into contact with these Imperial Fists. possibly they didn't realize how many Imperial Fists there were, otherwise they wouldn't have gone this route. And over here, the Legionaries have moved up. Now for Rebel shooting, and again, almost everything here can shoot, and certain elements are within rapid fire range now. So shooting is getting a little more dangerous, but next turn it won't be as much because one of the units that's getting a full round of shooting on Marines is going to be removed at the end of the battle round. So here we go. Renegade shooting turn 4. So something interesting happened on the Rebel shooting turn 4. It wasn't really in terms of how much damage they did. Even with the special weapons, Melta-Gun and Plasma Gun, even with supercharging the Plasma Gun, I couldn't get any wounds on these guys. I could get one wound on this guy. I remember this Melta-Gun hit, but wounded on a 1. Rolled a 1 on the wound roll. This guy lost his last wound and was taken down by plasma guns, the plasma gun and the plasma pistol. They both supercharge because we're fighting Marines. And the trouble is, both models rolled 1 on their hazardous check. So I do have to figure out how I'm going to treat hazardous as far as simultaneous removal. I do believe failing a hazardous check should punish you in some way. So maybe you don't get held back. Maybe you get removed right away if you fail a hazardous check. I'm going to have to figure that out on my own. Okay, I stopped that last recording because I thought I had my finger on the microphone, which I sometimes do, which is why the audio gets bad every now and then. Anyway, so both of these guys each took 3 mortal wounds that do not spill over. So by the rules that I'm currently using, these guys are down to 0 wounds remaining, and they're still... Oops, not this guy. This guy. And they can still charge and fight. So in the future, hazardous is probably just going to outright remove you. I also have to figure out what to do. Say if they started the turn like this and they fired supercharged weapons at the Marines, what happens to hazardous checks when you're already turned over like this, when you're already at 0 wounds? So hazardous, as a rule, is something that I really do have to figure out. So I'll put some thought into that over the next week, and possibly after the next week. The good thing about these sessions is I'm learning about a lot of the rules, loopholes, and other problems that these rules are generating. So I want to get this one right. So it's good that we're seeing hazardous play out using simultaneous removal. So that's essentially the end of the Rebel turn. They are going to charge, and I'll roll some quick close combat attacks for them. Everyone will get to swing. And then at the end of the Rebel turn, these guys will get removed. He'll get removed. And spare guys here. I accidentally revived one of these guys, but whether or not he was revived doesn't matter. He was still turned over, so he would still be able to shoot. And of course, this entire squad will get removed. So I'll roll out the close combat, and we'll see what happens. So very briefly, the Inquisitor took 1 wound, and the Marines took 4. So there's only 2 survivors for the Marine side, and 1 survivor here. I haven't rolled my attacks back, but it's going to be tough getting through 8 Marine wounds just so I can get up to him. I'd have to overkill the entire squad. But, since we're talking about simultaneous removal, speaking of which, simultaneous removal means this guy and this guy are removed immediately because they were close combat wounds. So let's just quick off camera do. So here, this guy will get to fight, even though he was killed this turn. Yes, all 3 of them fighting back. They only dealt enough wounds for 3 models to get removed. And so, at that point, it's the end of the Rebels' turn, and we remove all of the casualties. So, this is where we end up at the end of the turn. So, I'm going to remove everyone else, and then we're going to start Marine turn 5. As the aspiring champion knows that his time is up, he conducts a quick ritual and takes his own life. Warp energy surges, and 2 obliterators appear. The teleport homer is finally set up. The light begins glowing, the device hums, and then, in a flash of light, 5 Terminators appear. So Marine's turn 5 movement phase is complete. Since the reinforcements arrived between turns 4 and 5, I allowed them to move. It's also turn 5, and they're very far from their objective, so I figured why not. These guys got very close here. They're going to shoot, they're going to charge, they're going to try and wipe this stuff out, and then perhaps deal with this. These guys, I actually rolled an advance move, and I forgot to move them. So they're moving 10 inches, which should put them up somewhere around here. Finally, these guys are within range of the barrels and have started setting explosives. I'm still letting them shoot. It's not an action thing. Alright, so that's it for movement. On to shooting. I uncovered yet another rule that I have to factor into simultaneous removal. The captain fired a supercharged plasma pistol into the last remaining member of the squad. Everything went through, he failed his save, and he died. But he's still going to be able to fight in close combat, although it's a continuing combat as long if there are no charges. Even if there is a charge, he'll still get to swing before them. So, in other words, in shooting, someone killed someone who is within engagement range, and they're getting to fight back. So that makes shooting into combat substantially different from fighting in close combat, despite that both are done at the same range. If that were a melee attack, he would have been removed from the game immediately, but because it was a shooting attack, he's going to stick around until the end of the battle round. So I have to think about that too, exactly what's going to happen there. As for the report on what happened, lackluster results. Only 2 traitor guardsmen killed from this flamer squad. Well, there's 1 flamer. This squad took a number of casualties from this squad here. These guys advanced. They're trying to get better shots at these 2 units. And there's really not much else to say. Obliterators are completely unharmed. They made all their saves. They're really hard to deal with. It'll be interesting to see what happens when we get Power Fist to Power Fist. As far as right now, under normal rules, both of these squads would have been freed up from killing this guy. They can charge then at that point. However, they're all still locked in combat because he is still at 0 wounds. And simultaneous removal is being observed, so all these guys are still locked in combat with this dude because he's not quite dead yet. So that's it for Marine shooting. I'm just gonna nudge these guys in as far as charging goes. I'll do some attacks here, which will immediately remove people. And then we'll go into the Rebel turn. The Traitor Guard are reacting to the very close proximity of the Imperial Fists. They've reorganized their squads to allow for maximum retaliation, and hopefully will buy enough time to disarm the bomb. The Obliterators aren't moving anywhere. They have shots on almost everyone. Maybe not these guys. That pillar of rock is in the way. But considering the Terminators are their biggest counter, they're probably going to throw everything into them. On to Rebel shooting phase, turn 5. Pretty brutal exchange of fire. These two squads were able to kill 3. One of them only had 1 wound remaining, but the other 2 and this one died. Partly because melta guns and plasma guns are in play now, and all they really have to do is hit on their 4+, and then it's pretty easy to wound a Marine, and Marines have trouble saving against those kinds of attacks. Over here, these guys didn't really have many options. They couldn't fire on the Inquisitor or the Ultramarines because they're in close combat. Couldn't fire on these Imperial Fists because they were in close combat. So all they could do was just shoot some long-range autogun shots and 1 plasma gun shot, which got him killed with Hazardous. So we're going to have more close combat over here, more close combat over here, and yeah, that'll be it. And then we'll be starting Marine turn 6. The Inquisitor was on fire this turn. He made all of his saves, and he kicked the crap out of that remaining Legionary. Although the Legionary was going to die anyway due to simultaneous removal, but it was still empowering for the Inquisitor, especially to see that he's gotten this far and has only lost 3 wounds, which his wound counter got removed somehow, so there it is. Hilariously enough, the Traitor Guard actually managed to do a wound to the Marines, and the Marines just killed the guys that were already dead. So again, I'll have to examine that a little more, the whole concept of killing in combat versus killing in shooting, because basically I had to kill those models twice. And it could be said that having to kill them twice is to rob the person of their advantage that they have with simultaneous removal, because even if you've already gone first and you take casualties in the second turn, you can still use those models for various purposes, especially in close combat. So it's just something I have to monitor. This game has ended up being a big exercise in simultaneous removal, which is good. I want to see this rule get better. And I want to see it be usable and also concise. I hate having to explain the entire thing every time. It's kind of exhausting. So I'll work on the wording. I also forgot to mention that these guys hit once with their most powerful shot, and it vaporized the sergeant here. So anyway, starting Marine movement phase and shooting phase. The Marines are making progress. The Devastator Squad and what remains of the Tactical Squad focused fire into this unit and killed all but 1 model and the 2 leaders. This entire unit and the 2 Ultramarines put everything they had into here. They were able to take down 1 Obliterator, who unfortunately is going to stay here until the end of the battle round. The other Obliterator only lost 1 wound. This guy died to Gets Hot, or I'm sorry, Hazardous, but he's still going to be there for until the end of the battle round. And after a close combat that claimed nearly, no one, bolt pistols firing into close combat finally did some damage. And here it looks like the Inquisitor is acknowledging that these guys are in a tar pit and they could use a hand getting out. Because the unfortunate thing is, with the current rules for simultaneous removal, any kind of damage these guys and this guy do in close combat will be applied first to these guys, only because it would be stupid not to apply them to these guys. It's not mandatory. I could apply wounds to these guys first, but as the controlling player for these guys, I'm going to want to put wounds on them because they're already at 0 wounds. Or what close combat considers 1 wound. So, Gonna do close combat real quick, and we'll be back. This would have been a great game to test out the independent character rule. For example, this guy started the game with no retinue, or I'm sorry, with no bodyguard. He could have attached to these guys as soon as it came in if I was using the independent character rule. Similarly, this captain is now alone at the end of the battle round. He'll be removed. If he survives Rebel turn 6, he could move in here and take control of these guys, or the Inquisitor could take control of these guys. So that's the independent character rule and how that would work. But we're not testing that today. And also, it would be great for the Marines, but not so great for Chaos, because we don't have a lot of commanders attached to anything, and it wouldn't really benefit them to leave. So, in the future, we'll test independent characters more. I would love to see that come back into the game, and I would love to try it out and see how it works. But until then, we're doing just the two rules, infinite range and simultaneous removal. Speaking of, because currently simultaneous removal does not apply to close combat attacks, these guys cleaned up the Traitor Guard. We're about to do this combat here, and again, this guy was never attached to that unit. That's why he didn't follow them into the charge. So let's see close combat, first for Terminators, then for Obliterators. And yeah, Terminators are a pretty good counter to Obliterators. These are the Obliterator saves. They were saving on a 4+ against Power Fists. As you can see, we have 4 failures. Now, if we were just playing 40k standard, this guy who has 4 wounds would die, and that would be the end of the Obliterators. However, we would, as the controlling player of the Obliterators, I'm looking at 4 failed saves, 2 damage each. So this guy is treated as having 1 wound remaining. Anyone on their side is treated as having 1 wound remaining in close combat. So that's 1 of the failed saves, which equals 2 damage. So I now have 3 failed saves, which is 6 damage, and he was at 4, and this is a close combat attack, so he is removed. And there you have it. So they never really did get to shoot. This is a case where the intent of simultaneous removal didn't really happen, because a hybrid unit shooting and close combat was able to move in, do some damage first, and then go in and kill. And that robbed the Chaos Space Marine player, me, of the use of my Obliterators, even though I would have had free use if they just died in shooting. But close combat was able to wipe them out, so that got rid of the advantage. And again, simultaneous removal is meant to be a good thing. It's meant to be a way to preserve a unit so that it doesn't just get killed as soon as it arrives, like this one did. But requiring that the player go in and do something additional to get rid of it, I think that works. Because they shot at the unit, they didn't quite kill it. One had 4 wounds remaining, one was dead. But both would have been able to shoot in the Rebel shooting phase. And it required an additional action from the Marine player to go in and kill them, despite having had a model held back for simultaneous removal. So the additional requirement to remove the unit before it got a chance to really do damage, I'd say that's fine. Because it did require the Space Marine to do something it wouldn't normally have had to have done. Although I probably would have charged in anyway just to take out that last Obliterator, which this squad definitely did. Power Fists are very good at killing Obliterators. Be wary of them if you're a Chaos Space Marine player. So that's it for the Marine phase, or the Marine turn. So now we're going to Rebel turn 6. I'm going to do movement, and I'm going to do shooting. Mostly shooting. The guys remaining now, we're out of durable units. This is all that remains. These 3 units and those 2 leaders. Most of these guys are just here for show. They're not factored into the points values. And yes, I did balance the points values. So mostly they're just going to shoot, and we're going to see what happens. So Marines should have a decisive victory. I might not even require that the Marines run all the way over here to plant explosives. If the Marines can kill these guys, then I'm just going to call it. So there will be one more turn, so I'm going to make this very quick and painless. I'm going to do the rebel turn, which is just shooting, lots of shooting. I'm going to not do close combats, because none of that is happening. I'm going to remove all the models that are on their side, and then I'll see you again at the beginning of the Marine turn. Marine turn 6. The rebels were able to take out the remaining Marines in this combat squad, and the bomb is still here ticking. These Devastators, however, will ensure that no one gets near it. There's not much left defending the second supply cache. Although these guys are almost completely unharmed, with just one guy dying to his own hazardous test. They put almost everything into the captain, and he survived. They put the one melt-a-gun into the Inquisitor, and he survived. So now we're going into Marine movement and shooting. I'm going to do it all at once, and then I'm going to come back to you with the results. Through focused fire, the Marines were able to finally take down the entire squad up here. Although due to simultaneous removal, they are going to remain up here and get one more chance to fire down on the Marines, the Inquisitor, whoever. This squad was almost killed. Now remember, these models are in their positions, so imagine a base around each one, and these guys are going to charge it. So they're going to charge in and do something about that. I'm also going to have a little close combat here. They're going to move in, try and take these guys down, hopefully lock them up or something similar. Basically just by getting the base right into contact with the rock. Yeah, let's move on to close combat. First thing I want to do, though, is, no, it's not totally necessary, but as for charge range, he doesn't have to measure, the captain doesn't have to measure all the way out to this guy. He can just measure out to these guys. And this is also worth stating. This is a 10-man squad. It had a few casualties, and I shot a blast weapon at it. It still counts as 10 models, because they're not removed, they're still active, they can still do stuff. So even if you have guys turned on their side, like this entire squad, it's still a 10-man squad. I can still charge any part of it, and I can still count it as a 10-man squad for blast weapons. Alright, moving on to charges. Let me just do a quick charge for the captain, and 5 inches definitely is enough to get him right there. And the Terminators I'm just going to slot in. And we might as well just slot in everyone else while we're at it. Love the word slot. Slot, slot, slot. Everyone does charges. These are all like 2-inch charges. Alright, everyone's in. This is a 1, and it was on the little guy. Alright, I'm going to roll them out, and we'll see what happens. Predictably, these guys are vaporized, and these guys were taken down to 2 models remaining. I tried to remove models that would be within engagement range, so these 2 are free to shoot as they want, which I may as well do right now. I won't take a regular rebel turn. And armor save. Looks like they finally managed to kill this guy. And then at the end of their turn, they're removed. The only other thing that would happen is these guys would move in, They are all close combat units. And they would charge. And I'll come back to you with the results of that. Okay, at the end of the Rebels' turn, the Traitor Enforcer fisted the Ultramarines captain in the face, did 4 wounds, bringing him down to 1. The Mutant Ogren completely whiffed, and at least this guy did a wound to a Terminator, but it was no AP and he made his 2-up save. So the Terminators fought back and killed everyone. So now, simultaneous removal. We're at the end of turn 7, I want to say. And that's that. There are, aside from the decorations I told you about, there are no Rebel units left. So we can now assume it's safe for any Space Marines in the area. Perhaps these guys will continue to move down the flank and place the explosives. Maybe these guys will make sure that everyone is dead, and they might kick supplies around to try and get them into, some kind of a pile so they can blow them up at the same time. And that's it. Marine victory. It was at quite a cost. We lost 2 Marines here. We lost a combat squad. We lost the Marine combat squad. We lost this Inquisitor's retinue, which was 5 Voids Men-at-Arms and their dog. And we lost a Marine here. So the casualties are definitely high, but they completed their objective. They were able to wipe out some of the most elite defenders in this area. This is the last time I'm going to have Marines fight little guys, because that will get boring if it hasn't already gotten boring. We're going to have a lot more fair exchanges going on. And that also means, instead of using tactical combat squads, I might give them the stats of intercessors. Just because the legionaries, which I'll be using more of, they're better than a tactical squad. So I might need to upgrade the tactical squads so that they have a little more of a kick to them. But yeah, the Marine mission was accomplished, and the supplies will be destroyed. Additional rebel leadership was either killed or captured, largely killed, and the rebels are now going to scramble across the planet, consolidate their forces wherever they can, and strike out at Astra Militarum forces wherever they can. So the rebellion is largely going to be handled by the Astra Militarum from now on, whereas the Space Marines are going to, before they blow everything up, look for clues as to where the Chaos Space Marines are. They still don't know the scope of the Chaos Space Marine attack, so they're probably going to have to climb around the mountains a little bit to try and figure out where the Chaos Space Marines are and what they need to do to stop them. We're also going to see more Space Marine forces. In the last couple of battles, we've been following roughly the same guys. With some changes, they keep getting reinforced, etc. But it's largely been the same guys that had just been on a journey from the outer walls of the Hive City through the Valley of the Void and the armored column they had to fight through the camp and through the command center that they took, and then into the mines, and finally to destroy the rebel supply cache and the again veteran infantry that were protecting it. So that was all one long trail following the same general people. We're probably going to see a shakeup. We're not going to see the same Marine guys. We're not going to see the same Marines fighting the Chaos Space Marines. It's going to be some different forces. I might resurrect Captain Lysander, and we'll see what we want to test. The only thing I didn't test, because I kind of liked how the game was going, is barrels. I wrote up rules for barrels where you can shoot them and hilarious things happen. Maybe I'll try them at some point, but mainly I was just trying to figure out the holes in the rule simultaneous removal because I want it to work, and I think I have a fix on a few problems that I can solve. Alright, well, that's the end of the battle, and we'll be leaving the mines. It'll still be, next combat will be in a rocky area, but it won't be quite as claustrophobic. For instance, this one started off with, sort of a narrow passage, and it'll be more a more balanced battleground. Anyway, thank you for watching, and yeah.